you. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Shelly Herbert. I'm speaking to you from Cape Town, South Africa. I'm speaking on behalf of a few of my colleagues. Addison was a master's student of mine a few years ago. Karangwa, he's our stats expert who helped us on the paper. And then my colleague, Jacqueline Dean as well, who helped me putting together the paper for publication. And we're looking at an analysis of the relationship between foreign shareholding and ESG performance of South African listed companies. So just by way of some background first, anybody who was listening yesterday, there was a lot of talk around ESG and sustainability, and there's definitely been an increased focus globally on sustainable development. And a lot of investment decisions are increasingly being made around ESG principles as well. And particularly from the global north, Europe, the US, there's a lot of focus on trying to enhance sustainability and ESG decisions. Coupled with that, though, when Kate started her research, she realized as she was exploring what was happening around, we've had a decrease in foreign investment into South Africa. And in 2020, it decreased by 39%, but that was in comparison to only a 16% in broader Southern Africa. So she wanted to understand where we have less flows coming into South Africa, where are they going? Are they being directed into a specific area? She also did her literature review. She saw there was a lack of research on how ESG impacts on foreign investment, specifically in emerging economies. So her purpose then was to identify if an increased ESG score is correlated with foreign shareholding. Obviously, we can't tell causation, but we can at least see if there's a correlation between the two. And so she developed a main hypothesis being that there is a significant relationship between overall ESG score and foreign shareholding percentage for JSE listed companies. She did use a pre-COVID trading environment. She started her master's in 2021, and we know everything that was happening in the world in 2020. So she decided to cut off in 2019, pre-COVID. And then she also, ESG is environmental, social, and governance. So she looked at if for these individual scores, environmental, social, and governance, is there a correlation between those individual scores and a foreign shareholding percentage as well? So those were the hypotheses she looked at testing. She used data from 2015 to 2019. She wanted to do a bit of a longer period, but like I said, she cut off in 2019 pre-COVID. Her data, she got the independent variable, which is the ESG score from FTSE Russell. So the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, the JSE, they have a sustainability index and it's run by the FTSE Russell. And so they do the scoring. And so she used the data that came from them. And then for the dependent variable, the foreign shareholding percentage, she used Bloomberg data to be able to get that. And she used a beta generalized linear mixed effects model. I hope nobody has questions about the stats because I'm not the stats expert on the team, but that was how she tested it. In terms of those scores, that ESG score, FTSE Russell, when they do their scoring, they specifically do it with the SDGs, the UN Sustainable Development Goals in mind. And they do quite a comprehensive scoring. So they've got 14 themes that they evaluate the companies on across the 3 pillars of environmental, social, and governance. And then they also give an overall score. What's quite nice about how they do the scoring is that they take into account how exposed you are as a company to particular elements within those 3 pillars. And so if you're a company that doesn't have a huge environmental impact, they weight that component lower. So it is a nuanced score, which is quite nice. It's not just one size fits all. In terms of then the dependent variable, the foreign shareholding, she used that foreign shareholding as a proxy for foreign investment. It could have been others that she used, but that was what she chose to use. And she got that from Bloomberg. It was basically, well, it was limited to what information is publicly available. So when Bloomberg does it, they say which shareholders are based in South Africa, which are in other countries. Sometimes there's unknown shareholding though, and she needed to exclude if the unknown shareholding was too big, if it was more than 25%, she excluded those companies from the sample, and she used the year-end shareholding percentages, so the 31st of December each year, which correlates with when FTSE Russell does their scoring as well. It's based on that. And then there are various control variables she looked at. The industry has been found to be significant in literature, if they're sensitive industries or not. Company size, profitability, that's often found to be relevant in terms of ESG performance. And then when she was doing her literature review, she also found that free cash flows, so is often correlated with higher ESG performance because there are more resources available. And also if there are lower capital restrictions on what the company is able to do, then they're normally able to put more resources into improved CSR performance as well. So based on all of that, her sample, she looked initially at all of the companies that were listed as being scored by FTSE Russell, and that varied from 78 up to 89 companies in each of the years. She had to eliminate for various reasons if they weren't actually yet rated, that FTSE Russell was in the process of rating them, or if the data wasn't available for the various variables or the control variables, then she had to eliminate that as well. So she ended up with a total of 265 data points that she used. Of course, there are limitations. She was limited to just which companies are rated by FTSE Russell, also what information is publicly available. She was using the scores that came from FTSE Russell, so she didn't do the scoring herself. It was also pre-COVID and post-COVID, and also just with the global importance that we're seeing, there probably would be changes in this as well, possibly even more emphasis on ESG, but there's that. And then also she used foreign shareholding as her proxy for foreign investment, and something else might have given different results. So just firstly, her descriptive stats. So the things to really take note of, the overall score for the ESG score, and then for each of the pillars. So this is a score out of 5 based on FTSE Russell's scoring. So on average, across all of the scores, 3.4 was the average score. And environmental and social were very similar to each other, 3 and 3.1. But you see the governance score is significantly higher. And she looked at it year by year to also see what the movement was. And consistently, the governance score is quite a lot higher than the environmental and social scores, which are quite closely related to each other. And in South Africa, we're known globally to be a leader in corporate governance, many ways because we have Mervyn King, who comes from South Africa.
3 minutes left.
How many, sorry?
3 minutes.
3, thank you. And so Mervyn King has been a leader, and in 2016, the latest edition of the King Code of Corporate Governance was released. So we saw an uptick, and there's also a lot of emphasis on environmental and social and governance as well in King. So that all came through. But in general, we're seeing an increase in ESG performance. But when she then compared to the foreign shareholding and did the whole stats test, the inferential stats, to test the hypothesis. So the overall score did have a significant correlation to the foreign shareholding. So of course, that's not causation, but in terms of there is a correlation between the two. So she could accept that first hypothesis. And that then adds to the literature on investor behavior. Investors from other regions do appear to be shifting investment or emphasizing investment in companies that have higher ESG scores, and that's then meeting shareholder needs. In terms of the pillar scores, she could also accept it for environmental and social, if there is a correlation between foreign shareholding and the environmental and social score. But with the governance, there was no correlation that was seen. So we rejected that, but it's not completely surprising. As I said, South Africa is known to be leaders when it comes to governance. And so it seems like that's not something that investors particularly are expecting. They expect everybody to have good governance in South Africa. So to then summarize the findings, there is definitely with this increasingly limited foreign investment that's coming into South Africa, there does seem to be a direction towards companies that are performing well in terms of ESG. So we have a significant relationship with environmental and social, but not governance. So if companies are increasing their ESG scores, that might help to attract foreign investment to those specific companies. And that also
1 minute more.
Thank you. That governments should possibly be putting in place policies to promote ESG practices so that can increase foreign investment. So in terms of areas for future research, definitely examining the post-COVID environment, because we may well see that things have changed post that, especially with lots of regulatory changes that have happened, using other proxies for foreign investments, and also doing an analysis based on investor profiles might give some interesting results. So thank you for your time and attention, and I look forward to any questions if we have time for it.